Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, a podcast about mental health, resilience, and finding hope in the midst of adversity. I'm your host, MommaFoxFire, and I am thrilled to be here with you today to talk about emotional intelligence and our guest, Theresa Worthy's personal experience with alcoholism and infidelity, not related to one another. Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage our own emotions, as well as understand and empathize with the emotions of others. It's a crucial skill for building healthy relationships, reducing stress, and improving our overall well-being. In today's episode, we'll explore why emotional intelligence matters and how we can use it to further grow our relationships and how companies use it to enhance profitability. Theresa will also share personal stories about her journey with alcoholism and how she and her husband reconciled and healed after infidelity to stay in their marriage for over 50 years. No matter where you're at in your own relationships or how much you know about emotional intelligence, I hope this episode will provide valuable insights and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in, because even when tacos fall apart, emotional intelligence can help us put the pieces back together. I almost didn't unmute my own mic. That would have been fun. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Mental Health Monday. I'm really excited to be here tonight. We are going to have a wonderful, wonderful conversation. We are speaking with Theresa Worthy. We're going to be talking about her experience with organizations and emotional intelligence, and also her experience with alcoholism and a little bit of infidelity as well. So Theresa is a former French teacher turned professional speaker and consultant who's dedicated to helping individuals and organizations develop their self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and inclusivity. With her extensive background in education and language, Theresa brings a unique perspective to the table, emphasizing the importance of effective communication and empathy in all aspects of life. And as a passionate advocate for social impact and sustainability, she provides training and resources to help people and organizations enhance their profitability and also create a more equitable and empathetic world. Her mission is to help others understand the value of diversity and to create spaces where everyone feels welcome, heard, and respected. She is not just a successful professional, but a devoted mother of 3 adult children. And she and her husband share their home with a feral cat who prefers to dine and sleep on her sun porch, but ignores her on the street. I'm excited to talk about that tonight. We were just talking about cats right before we started here. Theresa understands the challenges of balancing family and work and is committed to helping individuals and organizations create a healthy work-life balance. So I do have several social links and websites and everything. I will post those in the chat. And if you are watching this and you want to ask a question, feel free to type your question into the chat with the prefix !Q, and that will pop it into there, and we will make sure to ask that tonight while we're live. Theresa, thank you so much for joining us today. I am super excited to have you.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to start this conversation.
Absolutely. So my first question is kind of based on, how you got into your current job. So you were a French teacher. How did you transition from that into what you do now, and what prompted that change for your career?
Well, my retirement prompted that change.
Okay.
And after I retired, the one thing I'd always wanted to do was write a novel. So I did that. And in writing the novel, I founded or began my own publishing company, and so that I could publish my book. And then I joined Toastmasters International, which is an organization that teaches you how to speak confidently and competently, and it also teaches you leadership skills. I found that I enjoyed speaking in front of audiences, so I started having workshops and seminars for aspiring writers to talk to them about how to actually write your book, how to, get it going, get an outline, every step you need to take, and then all the way up to publishing it. Mm-hmm. And then I joined the National Speakers Association, and in that organization, they concentrate on teaching speakers how to sort of perfect their business. And one of the things that they suggested is that you have a topic or a specific area where you concentrate your speaking. And so I've always been passionate about inclusion, although because I grew up in the segregated South, at the time the word we used was integration. So integration and inclusion are synonymous. Now, when I kept hearing this terminology, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I decided to become certified in diversity and inclusion so that I could distinguish between diversity and inclusion. Because a lot of people think that diversity means inclusion or vice versa when it does not. Diversity simply means variety. Inclusion means that everybody feels welcome, respected, valued, and appreciated. And then once I certified in diversity and inclusion, I had my speaking platform. But then during COVID, when we all had to go home, I started taking more courses so that I was able to certify myself in emotional intelligence. And then I picked up courses on self-awareness and also participated in an independent study about self-awareness. So that's how I added all three of those areas together to help create a more inclusive culture or a more inclusive world, if you will.
I love that. I think that's great. I mean, you went from retiring as a teacher. Did you enjoy being a teacher, by the way?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I really did.
You remind me a lot of my favorite teachers. So, and it seems like, the ones that are always the favorites are the ones who really enjoy what they do and really enjoy teaching. So that doesn't surprise me one bit. So what is your favorite thing about working in this field now? And what are some of the biggest challenges? This is like a second career for you. So what are some of the biggest challenges in this new career?
Well, the biggest challenge is making sure that I have my programs structured so that they meet the needs of my clients. Sometimes that involves, sitting down with them and discussing what their needs are. Sometimes clients have no idea. They just know they have this desire for an inclusive culture. They've tried different things, but they keep running into pitfalls. And so that challenge is helping them to figure out exactly how the program needs to be structured and what's going to be more effective for them. Now, the thing that I enjoy the most about it is after I've delivered my presentation, when people come up to me and say things like, I never thought of it that way. Or you made that, you turned that all around and made that so different. I can do that. I can put that into practice. And that's what makes me feel so good, because I feel like I've delivered a clear message, that I've given them something that, I've given them tools that I can implement immediately. So that's what I enjoy.
I love that. Did you find it hard to kind of get going in COVID, or did that really present a good opportunity to get that foothold?
Well, in COVID, most of my presentations were virtual. Yeah. And so now I'm really working to get back there on stage and with live audiences. But like most people, during that first part of COVID in 2020, I stayed home. In 2020 and 21, I stayed home.
Yeah.
And anything that I did was virtual.
Yeah. That's one of those things. There were so many different kind of careers and jobs where people were like, I don't know how to do this from home. But yeah, I mean, really with speaking, I guess that's not as much of a problem.
It's not. Once you learn how to navigate all of these different virtual platforms.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Brand new.
Yeah. There's always a new one. Yeah. We were talking about Zoom and the restrictions of using Zoom with the free account and all of that. And so Discord's new, but new to you. Not new in general, but yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. Yes. New to me. And I like learning new things.
Yes, absolutely. So Bite Mark has a question. Hi, Bite Mark, by the way. Welcome to tonight's stream. What is your favorite poem?
My favorite poem is Invictus.
Okay.
Yep. That's the one that has the line, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
By William Ernest Henley.
Exactly.
Yes, perfect. All right, here's a link to that one in the chat for everybody who wants to check that one out. Yeah, this looks like a good one. Oh, it's nice and short. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I think whatever gods may be For my unconquerable soul, in the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the honor of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. I love that so much. Oh, that's a good one. So I want to talk about this feral cat because how did this cat come into your life, and how close does it let you get? Like, you know, I have Tyrion over here. He's gonna scratch me if I wake him up too much. But how did you find this feral cat, or how did it find you, and what's your situation there?
Well, it lives in the it lives in the neighborhood, or it's been in the neighborhood for years. And we'd see it walking up and down the road. It would come into our yard. And then I discovered that it was actually sleeping here during the night, because when I go in the morning to let my dog out, it would scamper off the porch. And so it didn't hang around a lot. It just must have come during the night. Mm-hmm. And then we fenced in the yard with our last dog so that he couldn't go out and he could roam all around freely. And after that, I think he started to feel very secure once he got in here, mm-hmm. and once he knew that our dog was up for the night. And then our dog died, so that left us completely petless. And so I guess he figured out that the dog didn't live here any longer. Mm-hmm. And so I'd see him outside during the day, but as soon as I'd open the door, he'd scamper. Mm-hmm. And I would see him when I walked, on the side of the road. And I used to look at him, I think, my goodness, this cat is old. He's not going to make it. And so one night I decided to leave some food on the porch just to see what would happen. And the next morning, it was gone. So at first I wondered, did the cat do it, or did a rabbit get in here? What ate it? So I did it again, I did it, and then I started noticing that it was leaving. Then I started to notice that when I'd come out and put it on the porch, he'd come from under the table and look up at me. So I knew it was him, so that was good. And so I kept feeding. Then we approached winter, so we bought him a house, one of those little heated houses.
Yes.
So he could go into it and stay and wouldn't freeze to death. But when I open the door to feed him, he will not come into this house. He will put his head just over the threshold and peek in, but he will not come in. And then I've tried to touch him, and when I reach toward him, he jumps back. You know how quick they are. But when I'm putting the dish down sometimes, his head will actually touch my hand. And I'll look at him and I'll say, see, that's all it is. I could touch you with my open hand. But he will not let me. But who knows? Maybe next year. And we can't figure out if it's a girl or a boy, because we can't pick them up. Yeah. But there are times when two cats, we have several stray cats on the road, when there's two cats that come and they're just right behind, we call them Kitty. And sometimes I'm beginning to suspect that she's a girl because of these two cats. Mm-hmm. They come and they hang around, and she has to scratch at him and fight him, and he or she, whatever it is. And the other cats are bigger. Mm-hmm. But that's how he came to start being here. Now he spends all day on the porch. He just lays out in the sun. He just moves from chair to chair. He gets near my flower pots. He's just everywhere. Mm-hmm. And my husband, if he goes out on the sun porch, it startles him, and he'll start off, and then my husband will just turn around and come back in the house, and then he'll come back. But maybe one day he'll let me touch him.
Maybe one day. That's really cute. I love that. I mean, I feel like neighborhood cats are some of the best. I was just talking about, we have some wild ducks that live in our front yard, essentially. And they'll let us get really close to them, but they'll maintain that distance. Like if you get pretty close to them, they're just like, nope, that's close enough. And as you walk, they walk away. And it's just one of those things that I'm like, I'd much rather have a wild pet. It's so much easier to take care of.
It really is. And the good thing about Kitty that's really not so good is that when we go away, we don't have to worry about getting somebody to babysit or feed him while we're gone because he's not going to let anybody do it. And, I always think, okay, now he ate well before I started feeding him, so he knows how to take care of himself. But I get concerned that maybe he's gotten a little too domesticated and too accustomed to having this food brought to him. But he always survives when we're gone.
Yep. Well, that's how I feel about the ducks. I mean, they go away for all of winter. So it's like, well, I know you can take care of yourself because you're not here the whole year round. You just come here in the spring and then you're here, for the rest of the year. But yeah, that's great. Well, I love that. I love that you have a pet that has adopted you.
Yes. And he's so weird. When I see him out there when I'm walking, I'll say, "Hey, kitty." And he just acts like he doesn't even see me. And I know he knows my voice. I can tell from the way he reacts. But, I expect him to come walking up to me and, how they like to rub against your leg. That hasn't happened yet.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
One day, yes. I'm hoping.
Do you have a serial killer or true crime story that fascinates you?
Yes, I have 2 serial killers that fascinate me. Jack the Ripper and the Zodiac Killer. And the reason those 2 fascinate me so much is that they roamed, killing, and nobody ever discovered who they were.
Yep.
And that just is fascinating to me, how someone can kill that many people and nobody know who they are. And it always makes me think that we could be in the midst of a serial killer at any time because some of them have that skill to kill and then leave no clues or no hints as to who they are and just keep on going.
That's true.
Oh yeah, those 2 really fascinate me. They really do.
Yeah.
I'd really like to have known who they were.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, so I've heard there are some good Ripper tours in Europe and everything. And that's something that I would love to do one day is go on one of those. Because that's one of those things that it's just like, well, and the Hillside Strangler is very similar because they targeted this population of people who society at the time did not care about, which was predominantly sex workers. And so it's like they go into these communities and they get away with it for so long before anyone even starts to notice.
Yes.
I think we as a society need to do better. But the Zodiac Killer is a whole other level. I mean, he was on top of it and communicating with the press and everything. And then they just never did find out who he was. So
he challenged them. Fine, catch me, and they couldn't.
Yep.
Gosh.
Yeah, I wonder if one day they're gonna find, some family's gonna find like a manifesto that tells who it was, but maybe not. We might never know.
I never know, because look how long it's been since Jack the Ripper killed, and we still have no idea who that was.
Yep.
We don't even know if it was male or female. It could have been a woman.
That's true. That's very true.
And I understand.
I love joking that the Zodiac Killer is Ted Cruz because I find that hilarious. But I guess that's probably not true. Can't prove that it's not true, though.
Yeah, we can. We certainly can. Gosh, I've never heard that before. That's fun.
Oh yeah, that's a big running joke in Texas, at least.
That is Ted Cruz.
Yeah. If you look at the sketch of the Zodiac Killer that they have, they have a couple of sketches of him from eyewitness accounts, and then you compare it to Ted Cruz. It looks similar.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So when you wrote into the show, you talked about being an alcoholic and that it was kind of one of those things that you came to this discovery. So what led to the discovery that you were an alcoholic, and how has your recovery been since that?
What led to the discovery that I was an alcoholic was the fact that I couldn't stop drinking. Most people who have a problem with alcohol believe that they can stop anytime they get ready. And I was one of those people. I was convinced that anytime I get ready to stop drinking, I can stop. And I tried and I couldn't. And to compound that, I was also a blackout drinker. And a blackout drinker is a person who drinks to a certain point and then just sort of blacks out. And so when it would happen to me, I always thought it's because I went to sleep. But then I started getting stories from other people who had actually been out with other people and it happened, and I couldn't remember it. And that was scary. I didn't like that. But the one thing that made me realize that, you've got a problem here because you really can't stop. And so had it not been for my husband, who also had a problem with alcohol, and he was mandated to go to AA meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I went with him, so I knew about the organization. So when I finally decided to face the fact that I couldn't stop drinking, I thought, well, I'm going to go to a meeting and just see what happens, because it didn't seem to work for him. Let's see if it worked for me. And so I went. I was determined not to say that I was an alcoholic because, most alcoholics, we don't want to admit that we're an alcoholic, because that's like you're weak and you can't stop drinking, and we don't want to admit that. So I got in that meeting and I heard this one phrase. They said, for this one sentence, for an alcoholic, one drink is too many and 1,000 is not enough. And I thought, that's me. That's exactly me. That's how I black out, because I just keep drinking and keep drinking and keep drinking. And it's just, I like to say that I had a love-hate-love relationship with alcohol. Actually, it's hate, love, because my mom drank, and therefore I hated the thought of drinking because of her. And I didn't take my first drink until I was 21 years old. And that was a whole quart of beer that my friends tricked me into saying, that's how you have to drink. You have to drink a whole quart. And so I did. And of course I got drunk and sick, and I swore I'll never drink again. Next time I tried it in punch, and it wasn't bad. And then I was able to experience the feeling that came with it. And that's what got me going. Yeah. And as I, the longer I drank, the worse it got. But so far, I have not had an alcoholic beverage in 23 years.
That's incredible. Well done. Yeah, those drinks where they taste just like fruit punch are the dangerous ones.
Yes.
So did you mostly stick with AA? Is that mostly what kind of got you on the track to recovery and everything?
I stuck with AA, and they have a book that they publish. They call it the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in reading through that book, there are all these stories of people who've had, who've struggled with alcohol. And as you read the stories, I began to identify myself with these people and having some of the same struggles, some of the same incidents, some of the same things that they encountered. And then some were even worse. There were stories of people who'd been driving drunk and actually killed somebody in a car, or people who'd started a fight and just created all kinds of chaos, woke up in jail and had no idea how they got there. So it was enough to let me know that had I continued to drink, I could have reached one of those what we like to call bottoms, hitting the bottom. But that big book helped me. Going to the meetings, of course, and then they get together and they have these big conferences, and we got to travel, going to some of the conferences, and we met people, and so that kept me going for a long time. I did that for a long time, but then of course everything stopped with COVID, and since COVID, we've not been back. But my husband is also sober now too, so we're just taking it one day at a time. That's the motto.
Absolutely. Is there anything you wish more people knew about being related to or friends with or just around an alcoholic?
I wish people understood that alcoholism is a disease. Yeah. It's akin to having any major disease. tuberculosis, cancer. It just doesn't ravish you or kill you as quickly as some diseases does. But given time, without without relenting, it will do its damage. So it's a disease. And so like a lot of instances with people with friends or in relationships with someone with a drinking problem, they'll hear the person say, look, I'm going to stop drinking. I've told you I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. And then they do it again. And then that's upsetting to the person who's hearing that promise, because you're thinking, you said you were going to stop. So why do you keep lying? They're not lying. That's what I wish a lot of people would understand. They're not lying. They just can't quit. And that alcoholic mind will not let them admit that they can't quit. It won't let them admit they're an alcoholic. They live on the belief that anytime they get ready to quit, they can quit. They're just not ready.
Yeah. So you said you've been 23 years sober. So are you ever tempted to drink again, or is that something that that's just how you live now and it's all good?
No, I'm never tempted. It's just all good. I just have fun, high on life.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, that's one of those things that, it's hard, especially with it, like you're saying, being a disease. It can be really hard to say, that temptation is no longer there for me or anything like that. So I'm glad to hear that's the case for you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and what's so funny is when you first go into an AA meeting, you're determined that, I might stop drinking for a while, but there's no way I can not drink at all. And so that's how they came up with that slogan of one day at a time. Yeah, and they'll tell you, you can drink if you want to. We're not telling you not to drink. We're just saying, don't drink today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know they have that one day at a time, and then my ex-husband is an alcoholic, and he's been sober for 8 years, I think. But he goes through he had many days at the very beginning of his sobriety where he was like, I don't know if I can do one day at a time, and he really leaned hard on that. Okay, then take it an hour at a time. Okay, you can't make it an hour, take it a minute at a time. And it was one of those things that really helped him. That it's not, you don't look at the big picture. If that scares you, don't look at it.
Right.
Just break it down into, can I not drink for the next 60 seconds? Great.
Yes. Yes. And you can do it.
That's right. That's right. You can do anything for a minute. I could run if I had to for a minute. I don't want to, though. Don't make me. So you also mentioned to me just feeling unworthy and lonely and anxious over the antics of an unfaithful husband. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, he was unfaithful near the beginning. And like any woman or spouse or loved one, anyone in a relationship who experiences infidelity from their partner, the first thing you start to think is, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Am I not enough? What is it? So that gave me that depression and that anxiety, because of trying to figure out what do I need to do to stop this. And the loneliness, of course, occurred when he'd be gone and I was left by myself, because I wasn't. Now, some partners will go out too. When their partner goes out, they'll go out too. But that wasn't me. I stayed at home. And so at home by myself, of course, I was lonely. But like most women, especially when we, encounter someone who has a tendency to be unfaithful, we always begin to blame ourselves. And that's where self-awareness comes into play, because I had to get to a point where I realized that's not me that's doing this, that's him. He's not doing anything to hurt me. He's hurting himself. Mm-hmm. Everything that he's doing doesn't touch me. It doesn't cause me any pain, no more than emotional discomfort, but no pain, and I can live and keep going. And so then the emotional intelligence came into play when I realized I can't react with this emotionally, because we had children. And I was determined not to bring my children up in a broken home. Mm-hmm. So I had a choice. And so I'm not saying that to disparage any single mom out there or any single parent, because when you have to do it, you do it. And most of them do excellent jobs. But I just did not want it because that's how my mom was. She was a single mom. And my vow was to be a better parent than she'd been. So we went through counseling. We both, made our vows and pledges to do better. And so we've come through it, and now we've been married this year. It will be 52 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's a really long time.
That's a long time.
That is, yeah.
That's a very long time.
Well, I commend you for being able to work through it and putting in that work. It is a lot of work, especially if you weren't the partner who was unfaithful. That's a lot of work to put in to save something that you didn't put the breaking into necessarily. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And I always think, at least I wasn't someone like Hillary Clinton who had the whole world know.
Oh, no
that
kidding.
her husband had been unfaithful, and yet, she decided to stay in the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just something that a lot of couples deal with.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily something to end a marriage over, because you know how they like to say, boys will be boys, or I'm a man, I'm just a man. Well, of course, that's no excuse. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
But
it's really not. But yeah, I mean, that's my ex, we're not divorced necessarily because of cheating. We're divorced because of abuse. So it's one of those things that if you have to get divorced, get divorced. If you can't handle cheating, then get divorced over that and whatever you need to do to rescue your own sanity. But we did try to work through his affairs and everything. And it just happened that I finally found the strength to leave. So it's one of those things, if you can stay, if your relationship is healthy otherwise, and if you can make it continue to be healthy, then it's worth saving.
It is.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it, then don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just don't do it. Because there's a world filled with people who are looking for a partner, and they have different ideas about how a relationship should be handled. So don't do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Absolutely. Was it hard for you to heal and reconcile after that, or did you find it a fairly easy process just with counseling?
No, it wasn't easy. It was difficult because with our, and here is where emotional intelligence comes in. Our emotions are usually influenced by our past experiences, and our memories. And so you can't forget things. And you go, I'd go through a day or begin a day and I'd see something that would remind me of having gone through that experience. And I'd have to regroup. I like to say regroup. I'd have to tell myself, listen, this is not that time. That time is in the past. So you don't need to respond with that emotion in this day, in this moment in time. You can choose to respond differently. So, no, it wasn't easy. It was very difficult at first.
Yeah.
Because I always, I'd wake up in the morning thinking, why? I need to pack my bags and get out of here.
Well, and that's tough too, because so many people, that's the messaging, right? Is just once a cheater, always a cheater. If somebody cheats on you, get out right away because they're going to do it again, or whatever. If they did it with you, they'll do it to you. Those kinds of phrases are just thrown around all the time. And in some cases, that's true. I mean, of course, there's always a kernel of truth to things that just get thrown around. But in other cases, maybe it was just a slip and you can work through it. So
yeah. It's not a slip. It's never a slip.
Yeah.
It's done intentionally.
That's true.
But it's a common thing, It's a common thing. And when you think about now, in the case of abuse, now that's one of the things that you just can't stay in that. You just can't stay in having someone, mistreat you physically. No, you just can't do that. But when it comes to infidelity, because of the society we live in, and going through that whole time of free love, and there always having been this double standard for women and men, you'd have people, divorcing right and left. Because there's always going to be, let's say, there's always, in the case of a man, there's always going to be a woman out there who's willing to just give it up. And then in the case of a man, there's a man out there who's ready to just let a woman have it if she wants it.
Mm-hmm.
because sex is a part of our nature, of our human nature, it's just, it can become a difficult temptation. Some people have the strength to overcome that temptation, and some people don't. With some people, it takes time.
Yep.
But it is not an easy thing to deal with. But once you get through it, like I say, it provides a bit of wisdom.
Absolutely.
And so I have one son, and my whole goal with him was to make sure that he understands that if he says he's going into a committed relationship, he needs to remain faithful. If he's not going to do it, then don't go into the relationship.
Exactly.
And he just got married. He's 40,
congrats.
in his 40s, and he just married in March.
That's awesome. Well, congrats to him for sure. That's very recent. That was last month, man.
I'm telling you.
Was it a nice wedding?
Just got married. They didn't have a wedding. None of them did.
Okay.
All three of them have married within the last year.
Yeah.
They one of them called it an event where she had it at a restaurant, nice dinner and everything. She didn't wear white. The other daughter called it an extravaganza. And they rented a big house in Florida and had rooms for everybody, just family involved. And they had their ceremony, and we had food and had a pool party, and that was it. And my son, because his fiance's family is in Florida, and he didn't want to go to Florida to get married, and she wanted them to come here, but, they had trouble or difficulty in figuring out ways to travel and get here. They just decided to go to the Justice of the Peace. And that's how they did it. And they said later on they'll have the wedding. So we'll see.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. But the key is
throw that party.
Married. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about me in marriage, I never push them to get married. I kept thinking, goodness, are these people ever going to get married? They just, they don't look like they're going to marry. And my oldest daughter would say to me, Mama, you might as well be prepared. I might not ever get married. But she married first. Mm-hmm. And she just celebrated her anniversary in March. So
my oldest is 16, and he says the same thing. He says, I might not ever get married. I might not ever have kids. I'm like, listen, you live your best life. I don't care.
That's right. Yeah. You do what you want. You do you.
Yes, absolutely. So you work with your clients now to help them improve things like emotional intelligence, which we were just talking about, self-awareness, diversity, inclusivity. How do those things combine to lead to higher profitability for organizations?
Well, that's a good question. They lead to better collaboration between employees. They lead to more engagement, higher engagement. They lead to a place where innovation and creativity can thrive, and they lead to better leadership. And so I like to liken it to, how have you ever been stuck in the mud in a car?
I have.
And you're that wheel that's stuck just turns and turns and turns, but nothing moves, nothing happens until you find a way to get it up out of the mud and onto a level playing field, which is what emotional intelligence training does, self-awareness training, and inclusion training does. It gets everyone on a level playing field. And once that car is on that level playing field, it can go. And that's the same thing with an organization. Their profits begin to increase because everybody's involved, everybody's engaged. And if not everybody, at least most people. Programs begin to work. They begin to meet their goals, and they can set even higher goals. And in reaching their goals, that means profitability.
Yeah. That's something that I think a lot of people don't recognize, is that whenever you have people being included who aren't just all exactly the same, that you get higher creativity and you get better decisions that are going to impact your workforce more, especially for
Exactly.
a big company. It's one thing to have like a 5-person company where it's just the boss making decisions. It's another to have a 5,000 or 50,000 person company where those
Exactly.
decisions are going to impact so many different people that you can't understand their perspective because it's not how you came up. So
Exactly. And the other thing that it does with increasing their profitability is that they are able to retain employees longer because people aren't, forced to quit because this happened, or I'm having a conflict with my supervisor. Once that supervisor becomes emotionally intelligent and more self-aware, that conflict lessens. So it's just that's good work for organizations.
yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like employees of an organization who lack a focus on that diversity and inclusion and emotional intelligence, if you're an employee in an organization like that, do you think that you can bring about change from the inside, or is it better to seek a company where you're going to have a better culture fit?
I most definitely believe that you can bring about the change from the inside. And that's why I do what I do. If one individual decides, I am going to pay attention to my thoughts, my emotions, and my behaviors whenever I come in contact with someone who's different from myself. And once they begin to pay attention and they see that, okay, maybe I could have handled that a little differently, or maybe I could do this and make this, make this relationship smoother. Once they learn the tips and the tools and the strategies so that they can work on themselves, it becomes a case of where, let's say that's the person who's feeling excluded. Let's say it's me working in a company and I'm the only black woman in the office. And for a long time, I'm feeling like I'm being excluded. But if I begin to notice myself, do some self-reflection, do some journaling, do some mindfulness where I make myself concentrate on what's happening at the moment. What am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now? What's my behavior like right now? Then I begin to make a change in my behavior, in my thinking, and in my emotions. Because here's the thing about being human. We can control our thoughts, we can control our emotions, and we can control our behavior. All we need to do is reach an understanding of why we behave like we do, and then we can work towards changing it. So that one individual, me, I'm there in that company, I can begin to become a more inclusive behaving person. Make sure I'm kind to everyone that I come in contact with. Make sure that I'm being very competent with my work and that I'm doing what's expected of me. And then take sometimes my concerns to someone higher up. Sit down and have that conversation with them. And because I'm emotionally intelligent, I'm not going to let my emotions take over the conversation. I'm going to try to keep everything on an even plateau. And if I'm a person in a leadership position, I'm the best person who's there, because now I'm modeling the behavior. I'm modeling inclusive behavior. I'm modeling emotional intelligence. I'm modeling self-awareness. And as you model, people begin to follow and try to fit in and do exactly what you're doing. And so, yes, I believe people can make a change. And I'm not saying stay in a place if you feel as if you don't belong. Don't do that. I mean, don't run out and quit right away, because sometimes meeting your same salary, your same benefits, your same work schedule is difficult when you're trying to move to a different place. And here's the key. Here's the thing to remember. Every organization has those same problems. And that's because people are involved.
Yeah.
That's what culture means, people. And people are just going to be people.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're in an organization where everybody looks exactly the same. You know, they're the same skin color, they have the same religious background, they went to the same college or university. There's going to be something different. They might not like the same food that someone else likes. They might like wearing jeans to work and somebody wants them to dress up in a suit. They may have been in the military and somebody else hasn't. So there's always diversity. There's never a lack of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
There's just that lack of inclusion. And it comes because we're tribal by nature. All of us prefer being with someone, you know, that we feel comfortable with, that we like, or, you know, that's like us. But that's not the world we live in. There are different people all over. And when you're in business and you want to reach out and get customers and bring in income, you've got to be able to relate to those different cultures that are out there, even on a global perspective. And so that's why becoming self-aware, and an organization can become self-aware, becoming emotionally intelligent, and becoming more inclusive allows you to enhance your profitability and then get sustainable growth.
I love that, because it's one thing to leave a company, and this goes back to relationships too. It's one thing to leave a company or a relationship because it is truly toxic. That is a situation you shouldn't stay in. It's another to leave because there's just something that's a little bit off, and if you're able to work within it and try to make that change and try to make those improvements, then it could be worth it. And you could work there for 50 years.
Exactly, you could. And sometimes there are more things that you can do than quit. You can always take your concerns up another level, you know, because of the hierarchy that we have in any organization. There's a hierarchy. There's somebody who's a boss, then there's somebody underneath them and somebody underneath them. Take your concerns to that person and just see what happens.
Yep.
But absolutely. No, I'm not recommending that anybody stay in a toxic environment. But sometimes that income is key to maintaining a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to just walk away from it because of, you know, and usually it's going to be something that's being influenced by your emotions or your thinking or someone else's behavior. Mm-hmm. And so when you become more emotionally intelligent and more self-aware, you begin to understand sometimes why people behave the way they do. And most often it's because of some type of bias, and we all have them. Every last one of us. We have our biases, but we have to learn how to understand our own biases, which causes us to be able to understand it when we see it coming from others. And it lets us find a way to react in a different way so that we can keep having a relationship. Mm-hmm. We can still communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I having a stroke? Did my lights just change completely in here? I'm not sure what happened. All of a sudden, everything's just blue. But like, I'm looking behind me and it's not, it didn't change. Okay, hold on. I gotta look at something.
A stroke.
I know. I gotta look at something real quick because I don't know what's happening here. I don't know why it changed all of a sudden.
Flattering.
It's pretty, but it's just not what it looks like it's not what it looks like in my office. So I don't know why it looks like that. But I mean, you know, we're just going to roll with it. That's okay. Yeah, right. Like I'm getting sad or something. And all of a sudden your camera source changed. Restart your camera in any application currently using it. It didn't though. It didn't change. Okay. Well, I'm just going to ignore it and we're just going to press on. It's fine. So you have 3 kids. You just kind of mentioned them. So you know the struggles of juggling kids and work and relationships and basic human necessities like sleeping and getting exercise and everything. What's something you wish more companies would do to encourage true work-life balance?
I think more companies need to be flexible. Flexible in realizing that there are a handful of people who make that job their life. But then there's a whole world of people who have other aspects to their life. And so it behooves organizations to have leaders who are flexible. I think flexibility is important.
Yeah, it's I was leading a team just recently, and I just changed teams within my organization, and it was one of those things that most of my team saw that I was big on flexibility. I'm like, I have kids, I am a single mom, like my schedule's crazy. I'm going to put in the hours, but it's not going to be on traditional work hours. Like, it'll be during the day, but I'm going to take a long break to get the kids from school. I'm going to take a long break in the morning to get them ready for school and everything. And so it was one of those things that they expressed that they appreciated seeing me do that, because then they felt like they were enabled to do that as well as they needed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And more leaders need to have that, have that, be more flexible.
Yeah.
Because
we have a competitor who just told all of their employees that they have to be 100% back in the office. And we have had the fortunate result of getting some of them to come work for us instead. So
that's good.
I'm like, I'll take advantage of that to get some good people. Absolutely.
Yes, because people got used to that, working from home. And when you think about it, if a person can do that work at home and have everything done on time, why not allow them to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why is it important for us to understand our own emotions and the emotions of others?
It's important because it improves our communication. It improves our engagement with other people. It improves our reactions and responses, because once we develop an understanding, how they used to say that there's a slang about, where I'm coming from. We know where people are coming from. And then we know how to react to them. We know how to respond to them. We learn how to communicate with them, and we can continue on with whatever our mission or our goal is within our organization. So it's so important. And what's extremely important is coming to understand our own emotions, and our own thinking. Because the thing that I find that's most common is people having difficulty naming their emotions. For example, I can be angry, and I know I'm angry. And then I stop and I think about what I'm feeling. And my first instinct is to say, I'm not angry. And the reason, I have that is because I don't want to look like, I'm just flying off the handle. I'm just upset. I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm mad at the least little thing. But I have to name it. I don't deny it. Denying it is not healthy. I have to name it and say, yes, you're angry. And then stay there in that place of being angry long enough to get to the root of what is it that you're angry about. And then once you realize what you're angry about, usually whatever it is has ceased to happen. It's gone on by. So why not bring that emotion under control and live in that moment without the anger? Just, kind of put the anger aside. I'll deal with you later. If you want to be, we can be angry when we get home. but let's not be angry right now, because this is not the place to be angry. So, like I've said before, we, as humans, we have the ability to control our emotions and our thinking and our behavior at all times.
I think that's hard for some people to accept,
I know it is. It's hard for people to accept until they do some self-reflection. That's the key, self-reflection. And you can do it in just a few moments, or you can do it by journaling. You can do it through going and taking a walk, and as you're walking in the quiet, Think about what it is you're thinking. Listen to your thoughts. Feel those emotions. Give names to them. And watch that behavior. Watch how you're behaving when you're communicating with people. Mm-hmm. Because we live in a world where we're going to be around other people. And we're going to have to communicate with them. We're going to have to try to get along with them. And it's better to do it from a place of calm and peace and knowing exactly who we are and knowing how to control our own behaviors and our thinking and our behaviors.
Mm-hmm. For those who may struggle with communication in personal relationships, are there any strategies or exercises you can share related to understanding your emotions or the emotions of your partner in that moment?
I think the best one of all, well, there are two. There's mindfulness, and that just means stopping for a few minutes and taking an inventory of yourself, just for a few minutes. And then there's journaling. When you write something out, it's like you're getting it out. You're not saying it, but in a way you are saying it because you're writing it. You're letting your thoughts flow. You're letting everything flow into that pen, if you will, or into that keyboard as you tap into it. But I just suggest journaling or mindfulness. But if it's to the extent that you just cannot get along, then sometimes you ask for outside help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with asking for outside help either.
No, and then being an active listener. You may say to your partner, I'm having a problem with this. And then you say what it is you're having a problem with. And when you're speaking, of course, you're not actually listening. You're just hoping that your partner is being an active listener so that they hear what you say. And then when they respond, you listen actively to what they say. And then go from that point. Go from what they say. And a good thing is to repeat back what someone says to you, to show that you actually understood what they say. My husband and I do that a lot. And what's so funny is there's so many times I have to repeat it before he says, "Oh, that's what you're saying." Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's hard sometimes for folks who don't necessarily practice active listening all the time. Most of the time you're listening, and at the same time you're listening, you're trying to figure out what your response is going to be before you finish listening. And so that's really, to me, what active listening comes back to is listen to everything they're going to say before you start formulating whatever your response is going to be. And so that takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of time and effort, especially if you want to be just Johnny on the spot with a response all of a sudden. But yeah.
It does. And unfortunately, anything that's involved in self-improvement takes time and practice. You know?
It does. That's very true.
It's really, yeah.
So Growling has a comment in the chat and says, I hope you're just talking about general emotions and not one caused by mood disorders. Yes, no, that is a great distinction, Growling. There are definitely things that are caused by mood disorders that are out of someone's control. What we're talking about is that emotional intelligence level of emotions and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
The things that are in our control. So, Theresa, is there anything that you do now in terms, you've mentioned journaling and those kinds of things, but in terms of exercises or activities that help you better understand yourself on an ongoing basis?
What I do on an ongoing basis is practice mindfulness. I make myself come to the present moment, and I take a quick inventory. I do it, several times a day. What are you feeling right now? Are you feeling like this? What are you thinking right now? Why are you thinking this? And what are you getting ready to do? And what are you basing on this action that you're about to take? What are you basing that on? And so the more I do it, the more I'm beginning to understand myself. I'm beginning to realize that a lot of my behaviors and my emotions stem, like I said, from past experiences or memories. And I have to remind myself, this is not then, this is now.
Yeah. And that does take practice as well.
Yes, it does.
Well,
Really does.
I'm gonna grab my, oh man, my magic wand is stuck in the drawer. Uh-oh. So it is time for the magic moment of the stream, and I do happen to have, if I can get it to work. Work for me. The magic is not quite magicking today. Oh, there it goes. Yay! Oh, it's all blue. Okay, well, this is actually rainbow, I promise. I don't know what is going on with my camera. This is the craziest thing. But if you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion, misconception, or theory surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health, what would that be? Oh, it just fixed itself. Do you see this? What is going on?
It's really magic. Now it's pink.
I don't know what's happening. It's fine. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
That's okay. So my magic moment would be to take away that hesitancy and that discomfort that comes from people when they need to talk to someone about mental illness or speak about someone with mental illness, and to avoid using words like crazy or insane. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't mean a person's crazy when they have a mental illness, and it doesn't mean that they're insane in most cases. It just means that they're having a little hiccup and they need help. They also need empathy and compassion and understanding.
Absolutely. I think that would be, if we could eliminate that, I'm on board for that to be the one thing for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Chat, if y'all have any other questions for our guests, feel free to pop them in. I am going to post these social links one more time. So we've got website, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those if you want to connect with Theresa offline. And then Theresa, I'll just open it up to you. Is there anything as far as resources or anything else you want to share that we maybe didn't touch on tonight?
No, I think we touched on a lot.
We did.
And so I just want to thank you for inviting me to be here. I really appreciate it. And this has been fun. This has been a good conversation.
Good. Well, I was very happy to have you. I think that this was a really good one. I don't know why I had technical difficulties with my camera there in the middle, but listen, sometimes shit just happens, and that's okay. Exactly. We just press on. It's part of that resilience you gotta have. So Bite Merce says, thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot and laughed several times, so that's a good combo. Absolutely. I feel the same way. Well, chat, give me just a minute to connect with Theresa, or to disconnect with Theresa offline, and I'll be right back. So y'all hold on just a minute, and I'll be right back. Theresa, thank you again so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I hope this episode has provided valuable insights and practical tips for developing emotional intelligence and using it to build better relationships and improve your overall well-being. I also hope that you're able to relate with our guest on her personal stories. Remember, emotional intelligence is not something that you either have or don't have. It's truly a skill that can be learned and developed over time with practice and patience. I invite you to continue the conversation on emotional intelligence by sharing your thoughts and experiences with me on social media or through our website, tacosfallapart.org. And if you found this episode helpful, please consider leaving a review or rating on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more people who may benefit from this information. Until next time, remember that even when tacos fall apart, we can use emotional intelligence to help us pick up the pieces and create something even better, like nachos. Thank you for listening, and take care.